his very mouth. And therefore, we must realize, reading on and establishing ourselves to know what we must do. Because we seek the continents, as it says in Psalm 89. And let's go back to Psalm 89. Because this is what we seek. We seek a reconnection to the truth that our God has told us about, that is written on these pages. 89 verse 18. 89 verse 18.
For the Lord is our
Defense. Read it over and say Yahweh. Go ahead.
From the Lord.
Yahweh.
Yeah.
The Lord say, for Yahweh.
For Yahweh is our defense, and the Holy One of Israel is our King.
So this says here, for Yahweh is our defense, and the Holy One is our King. And therefore, we go into Proverbs, because we understand that our King, and what do we seek from our King? In the book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 15. 16 verse 15. This is what we seek. 16 verse 15 says, what? In the light of the king's countenance is light. Don't you see the light of your king? It said, in the light of the king's countenance there is life. When he blessed us in the benediction, he say, may his countenance shine upon us. And therefore, this was the benediction that was given to the children of Israel that could only be given by the Levi. That was all. Nothing else could be given. It had to come out of his mouth. And therefore, when it no longer proceeded out of his mouth, Israel had cut his own throat. It was over for them. They needed that reconnection to the spirit of Yahweh that only the Levites, by the utterance of their tongue, and therefore in their righteousness, they were able to execute that beautiful saying that was written, and I like to read it to you in Hebrew. Yabarakaka Yahweh Wajishamaraka Yara Yahweh Panayuwa Alayika Wayachanaka Yesha'a Yahweh Panayuwa Alayika Wayishama Alaka Shalom Wama. And that was the benediction that the priest said to the children of Israel. And therefore Yahweh is our King, and we seek the light of our God. And therefore, even in the book of Ecclesiastes, it goes to tell us in chapter 8, verse 4. Chapter 8, verse 4. And let me move on. It says, where the words of a king is, there is power. And who may say unto him, what dost thou? And the word of our God was to establish us in the everlasting covenant that he gave to our forefathers, to be obedient to the commandments, to embrace it with all their mind, with all their body, with all their might. So we know Yahweh, according to scripture, he is our king. And therefore, to further giving light to that is to read Psalm 10, verse 16. It says, Yahweh is king forever and ever. The heathens are perished out of his land. See, Yahweh is our king. And he's our king forever and ever. When we go in Psalm um, Psalm 47, Psalm 47, I want to make us Psalm 47, verse 7. For Allahayama is king of all the earth. Sing ye praise with understanding. And therefore in Psalm 80, Psalm 80, I want to make it crystal clear that what is transpiring in our life is a neglect of doing what was told to us. 80 verse 3 says, go ahead.
Turn us again, O Allahayama, and cause thy face to shine, and we shall be saved.
That's right. See, we're asking Yahweh to turn his face to shine, because that's where the salvation came. And we're telling him, turn us again, O Allahayama, and cause thy face to shine, and we shall be saved. And it also makes that same statement in the same Psalm 80, verse 7. Let's go to verse 7, and it says the same thing. What?
Turn us again, O God, O Yahweh, to hold of hosts, and cause thy face to shine, and we shall be saved.
Yes, see, it says, turn us again, Yahweh Allahayama of hosts, cause thy face to shine, and we shall be saved. And it's different, and I will show you the difference. That's not the same thing that we said first. It's different. Let's go down to 19. We saw that in 7. We saw that in 3. Did we read 3? Let's read 3. And we saw it in 7. Go ahead.
3. Turn us again, O Allahayama, and cause thy face to shine.
That's right.
And we shall be saved.
And we shall be saved. Psalm 80, verse 3, verse 7, and verse 19 is telling. When Yahweh's face, his countenance shine upon us, he is king, and by his word we are delivered. We are delivered by the countenance of the shining of his face, which is the benediction that came out of the mouth of the Levi. And that's why he told you, he said, man, never take care of them. Make sure they don't get out of your way. Yahweh never said nothing for nothing. When he said something and gave you a commandment, he hooked it together. He hooked us together. He made it to where if you was going to be delivered, you could not have it no other way. And therefore, even, that's why he told you, we seek as the people, we seek the light. And that's why it says in Isaiah chapter 8, which we already read, but I will read it again. To the Torah and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, is because there is no light. We are children of the light. We seek the light. We don't seek the darkness, we seek the light. And therefore, in seeking of the light, we only seek what is naturally ours, so that we might be comfortable. We're not children of the darkness. The children of the darkness are doing that which is dark in the earth to receive their reward when they leave here. And that's why in Proverbs 6, in Proverbs 6:23, it tells you where your light is. And it says, for the commandment is a lamp, and what the Torah is a light. This is your light. And in Proverbs 13:9, it says, 9, the light of the righteous rejoices, but the lamp of the wicked shall be put out. See, the lamp of the wicked shall be put out, because there is no light. We live in the world of light. We are children of the light. We seek the light. That's what we seek. And when Yahweh gave it to us, and let's go to Proverbs 4. Proverbs 4 tell you exactly as a people. Proverbs 4, verse 18.
But the path of the just is as the shining light, that shineth more and more unto the perfect day.
Go ahead.
The way of the wicked is as darkness. They know not at what they stumble.
Yeah, see, we are children of the light. The Torah is our light. And therefore, when it talked of how we shall retain and what shall we do, this book clearly explained to us what was going to take place. And therefore, we who already know it, what should we worry about? We can only help the people when there's at the time that they would come, when the time where he says, seek me. At this time where I can be found. And therefore, the word of our God establishes us as a people. And as this word is taken out of the earth, that's why I said, behold, in Amos chapter 8, verse 11, behold, the day cometh, the days cometh, not day, the days cometh, said Yahweh Elohim, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but for hearing the word of Yahweh. And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from north even to the east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of Yahweh, and shall not find it. In that day shall the fair virgin and young man faint for thirst. See, this is what's going to happen. They're going to perish, because Yahweh God is going to take the word out of, and you who have the word is already in you. You don't have to worry about that. That word is in you. And therefore, because the word is in you, let's go to Isaiah chapter 6. See, we're children of the light. We seek the light. Isaiah chapter 6, starting at verse 1.
In the year that King...
Isaiah chapter 60, sorry, I said 6. Chapter 60, starting at verse 1. Because I want to show you that we are children of the light. Moving, and Yahweh God has said to us, we won't even need the sun, because he's going to be our everlasting light. Go ahead.
Isaiah chapter 60, verse 1.
Starting at verse 1.
Arise, shine, for thy light is come.
That's right. Rise and shine, for who is our light? For it has come. Go ahead.
And the glory of Yahweh is risen upon thee.
That's right. Then that was the benediction that the priest would utter, that Yahweh's countenance will shine upon us. Go ahead.
For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth.
What was the darkness? For hearing the word of Yahweh, where the light was never in it. Go ahead.
And gross darkness, the police.
The people.
The people, sorry. But Yahweh shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. And the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising.
Yeah, see, they shall come. As it said, arise and shine, for thy light is come. Who is our light? Our King, Yahweh God. And it says, and the glory of Yahweh is risen upon thee, for behold, the darkness shall cover the earth. And what? Darkness shall cover the earth, for what? Gross darkness to people. Not darkness, but gross darkness to people. And it says here, but Yahweh shall rise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee, Yahweh's glory. And it goes on to say, thy sun shall no more go down, neither shall the moon withdraw itself. For Yahweh shall be thy everlasting light, and the days of thy mourning shall be ended. Thy people also shall be all righteous. They shall inherit the land forever. The breach of my plant, the work of my hand, that I may be glorified. A little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. Our Yahweh will hasten it in his time. So Yahweh God is saying some great things to us, and we should be ever so grateful. As it said, the sun shall be no more thy light by day, neither for brightness shall the moon give light unto thee. But Yahweh shall be unto thee an everlasting light, and thy God thy glory. The sun shall no more go down, neither shall the moon withdraw itself, for Yahweh shall be thy everlasting light, and the day of thy mournings shall be ended. So Yahweh God has given it to us. We are children of the light, and we know the light cometh what? From keeping of the commandments of Yahweh. And therefore, when people see, she's always saying, Dad, you look so bright. You understand? Your skin looks so clean. This is the light. These are the things that pertain to Yahweh. That's why when you look at a young girl that is virtuous, or a young man that's taking care of himself, he glows. You understand? Why would, a woman that has just thrown herself to the wind, a young man that has thrown himself to the wind, he begins to tincture. His skin begins to what? Become not bright. Take care of yourself, so the brightness of your God will shine upon you. And therefore, for the godliness that you possess, you're wholesome. But once you start cursing out your mouth, once you start defiling your very temple by doing all kind of secret and ungodly things, it defiles you. Even the women that you choose. You don't choose a woman that has been in the bed with all types of men. You don't choose a man that's been in the bed with all types of women. You choose a godly, righteous man or woman that's serving Yahweh God. You understand? Even those that are serving God look better than the ones that are out in the street serving nobody. You understand what I'm saying? You give yourself to righteousness. You give yourself to doing that which is expected of you, so that Yahweh God will shine upon you. And you can always see it. This is the light. This is the radiant that Yahweh God has given us, so that we might be strong in righteousness. Even the way we think, we must clean our thoughts up, be more compassionate, slow to anger, slow to judge. You understand? People are wrestling down here, making all kind of errors. You understand what I'm saying? Doing things that is not wholesome. Have such defiled thoughts. Having sex with animals. Having sex with men and women with women. And therefore what? When the devil allows his children, what it said, does it say to show you that the light is very important? And even the devil himself disguises himself as an angel of light. It tells you. See, because he knows that light is captivating to you. And therefore, when you see the light that he has prescribed and he has put himself in, you fall in line. But he is the son and daughter of darkness. And therefore, being the son and daughters of darkness, he gives you an imitation of the light. And therefore, you fall victim of believing he is what? A child of the light. Because he deceives you by putting on the cloak. Because why? He knows that if he comes into his rightful, the way he looks, you ain't going to have nothing to do with him. And it says, for such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves in the apostles of Christ, meaning the anointing. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. That's right. See, we're children of light. So he deceives us and he makes it all beautiful, shiny. And therefore, that's why I say there's a way, and it seemed right. It seemed right. You will look at it and say, it's right. Because it has been transformed into light. and therefore you trust what is light, what is pretty. You give your attention. You don't know how to judge it. And so you say, oh, they must be very elegant and very righteous people. But Yahweh say, if it was possible, it would fool the very elect. And what you must do is keep the commandments of Yahweh God. You don't let nobody take you out of that. You when they said Kahar Amari Yahweh Ha, thus said Yahweh. Paul never said that Christ told him to say anything out of his mouth. That's why it says in from St. Matthew's, the gospel, it says according. They should have gotten it out of Christ's mouth, and it wouldn't have been according to St. Matthew, St. John. It would have been how it was stated out of the mouth of Christ. But they didn't get it out of his mouth. They did it according to how they saw it. And therefore, that's why Yahweh said, I will put my words in the mouth of the prophet, and he will speak my words that I will tell him to say. And that's why he said, we say, thus said Yahweh. We don't speak our words, but Yahweh God, we are servants of Yahweh. Yahweh didn't tell me to say anything. I'm a servant. You a servant. You can pick up the word of Yahweh God, and if you care to teach it correctly, and what does he say? Comfort ye, my people. We are comforters in the words of Yahweh God. And Yahweh God will help us to direct and deliver it, his word, properly and with the respect of being his servant, because Yahweh God is the master. He's a master. And he says in Malachi, and we must honor him and respect him, because see, it's not about us, it's about him. And Yahweh God doesn't let any of his workers that work in the vineyard be a liar. You understand? If you're working for Yahweh sincerely and keeping the commandments, and the Ruach is hooked up with you, and the light is on you, then Yahweh God will walk with you. Yahweh God will instruct you. By the very nature of you that is in you, things will fall accordingly, because Yahweh God won't hold nothing from him that walk perfectly before him. And we must pray for that perfection. We must utter and ask him, because we are children of the flesh, and we do what the flesh, and therefore we must monitor ourselves in prayer and asking Yahweh for obedience through the Spirit, that we will have dominion over the flesh through prayer. Asking Yahweh God, knowing our imperfections, so that we might come to the altar of Yahweh and say, Yahweh God, my flesh is weak, but in prayer I'm perfect, because I ask you to guide me so that I can come from my imperfection through prayer, and asking you, who is the Spirit of all righteousness, to help me to overcome my weakness that is natural in the flesh. You're naturally to have circumstances of the flesh, because you are flesh. But you do battle in prayer and understanding your weakness of the flesh, so that you can overcome it. No matter what it is, you take it to the altar of Yahweh. And if you're willing to confront it physically, then by verbal communication with your God and saying, this is my fault, but I care to render it to you so that you will help me so I can resolve it. Then Yahweh God knows that you're conscious of his works in your life. Don't be afraid of being of flesh. You were born of flesh. You were born of sin. But now work it through prayer, through consciousness of being aware. We don't have to be afraid of the devil. We have to be afraid of what we don't know about ourselves. All we got to do is just put it on the altar and let Yahweh have his way. Because you can't get through this without Yahweh. You ain't going to get through this without Yahweh. When you throw away those evil things of yourself, It teaches you to have compassion upon people that are working it out the same way you had to. It's a hard job. It's not easy. It's not hard. It's not easy to be honest with your own faults. But when you can be honest with your own faults, you can have, that's the first step of deliverance. And knowing that you can knock on your God's door and he will save you. That's right. He will save you. And I would like to, before we end this, I'd like for us to go to Psalm 50. Psalm 50. Verse 15. Psalm 50, verse 15.
And call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver thee, and thou shalt glorify me.
That's right. He said, call upon me in the day of your trouble. He said, call. And trouble can be either way, where you want to keep the commandments, but you fall short. And you say, call upon, he said, call upon me in the day of your trouble. I will deliver you, and you will glorify me, because you know you can't get out of this unless I help you. And it says in Psalm 55, verse 22,
Cast thy burden upon Yahweh, and he shall sustain thee. He shall never suffer the righteous to be moved.
there you go. That's it. There ain't nothing more to say. May Yahweh bless each and every one of us. Yahweh Elohayama. Yahweh Elohayama. Shama'a, Shallah, Yahweh, Allahayinawa, Yahweh, Akhada, Yagadala, Yahweh, Yagadala, Allahayinawa, La'a, Ya'anaha, Latistayikwa, Kaya, Shamasha, Magana, Yahweh, Allahayima, Khanaha, Alaka, Yahweh, Sabayaba, Layura'a, Yawa, Wayecha, Natisma, Berawaka, Allahayima, Ashura, La'a, Yesayura, Palataya, Akhasadawa, Ataya, Yatisra, Samawaka, Natisra, Shalawama, Kaya, Baka, Bata, Wacha, Bata, Hawa, Bayahawaha, Ataya, Atta, Kaya, Bayaha, Yahawaha, Tiswara, Apwalaya, Kaya, La'a, Nahasha, Bayakaba, Wala'a, Wasama, Bayashara, Allah. Yagadala, Yahweh, Yagadala, Allahayama, the Shabbata, Atniga, the Quadrisha, Yahweh, Makaba.